Hello, everyone. Hello, and welcome to the virtual GRC Summit 2020 by MetricStream. My name is Hari, and I'm working as a product manager at MetricStream, and I take care of the risk management application. I hope that all of you are safe and sound at your residences in this pandemic situation. I also wish that you have an enjoyable and educative experience at the summit. So the topic that I'm going to be talking to you about today is improving risk visibility with aggregated insights. So to put it in simple words, what it means is how does a risk manager consolidate the risk assessments and then view it at, let's say, around 8,000 feet above sea level, and how does he see his data from his line of business or her region perspective, right? So that's the topic that we're going to be talking about. So let's take a look at the agenda. So I'll be talking about factors of aggregation, aggregation challenges, the big picture of MetricStream's solution, a use case to make the solution easier to understand, and the live product demonstration, of course. Factors of aggregation. So what are the factors of aggregation? So in a nutshell, there are about 4 factors of aggregation. So number 1, the organization dimension, which is nothing but a structure or framework through which an enterprise tries to achieve its business objectives. The accessible item, in combination with the organization dimension, nothing but the context of the risk assessment. For example, it could be I would want to do a risk assessment for a project or for a product, for a process. So that becomes the context. And the risk assessment itself plus the aggregation logic. So all these 4 are nothing but the factors of aggregation. So now let's talk about aggregation challenges. So the first challenge of aggregation is the organization, accessible item, and risk that we just spoke about in our previous slide. All of these are hierarchical in nature. So why is that a challenge? It's a challenge because anything that is flat is relatively simple, right? So the moment it becomes hierarchical in nature, it has got multiple levels, and yeah, it becomes complex. So and in fact, that it can also become dynamic hierarchies. So when I say dynamic hierarchies, it may be possible that, in fact, it is possible that there is a risk manager who's in charge of the European operation in a particular line of business, or there could be a business manager in charge of a particular region. So that makes the nature of the hierarchy is dynamic as well. So the next 2 challenges are with regard to the nature of the assessments. So as you can see, the assessment happens in the center of the context, which is nothing but the org, accessible item, and risk that we spoke about, and it can happen at any different level. The next challenge would be the rating scale could be different at the different levels of org hierarchy. Meaning, if there is, let's say, for example, for a child of enterprise, $100,000 potential loss could mean a high rating. The same 100,000 loss could probably mean a medium rating if it's for a parent enterprise, right? Maybe $200,000 is what means high for the parent enterprise. So there is differences in terms of how the data is perceived as well, depending on what the data is for. The next challenge, the $1 million question, is what aggregation logic needs to be used. Now, this is an interesting challenge because nobody actually tells us how or what kind of logic we need to use. Right? Even the BCBS standard of BCBS 239 also it talks about 14 principles, right? So all of which are, for example, it talks about correctness, accuracy, completeness, comprehensiveness, right? So all of these are principles which we have to keep in mind while aggregating the data. However, it does not tell us how to aggregate, what formula to use, what is the logic to be used. It doesn't say that. So that makes it challenging to determine what kind of formula to use as well. And the final challenge was not every organization and risk are of equal importance, right? So not 2 risks are the same. That's so we always have to think about that as well. So now that we spoke about challenges, let's talk about the solution. Okay, so so the first challenge: any software must give you the necessary flexibility to configure the dynamic hierarchy that we're talking about. So MetricStream provides you a framework called multi-dimensional organization structure, which we call as MDOS, whereby you can configure any kind of complex organization structure using this particular framework. Not only that, MetricStream also provides you with a robust library setup, which can help in configuring multi-level risk taxonomy as well. right? So the next two challenges are, like we discussed, the context. So metric seems simple setup enables you to set the context of an assessment. So you will be able to determine for which context am I setting up this assessment for. Is it for a project? Is it for a product? Is it for a process? Is it for some other dimension? Right. So you will be able to set up that particular context easily using the metric stream setup. And for the rating scale challenge, we have centralized factor and this rating scales configuration, which can be leveraged. And the metric stream, in a few slides and including the product demonstration, we'll be talking about the aggregation logic and how the reporting is done as well. So out of the box, we support certain arithmetic aggregation logics like worst case scenario aggregation, average aggregation, etc. So not just that, so even this, like I said, is out of the box, but metric stream framework is flexible that it allows you to extend the framework fairly simply so that any kind of aggregation need for a particular enterprise can be taken care of. And for the last challenge, we can always tag in weights so that to recognize the relative importance of a risk or an organization. Now that we've spoken about challenges and how to and what kind of solutions that we have for those individual challenges, I'd like to emphasize on the aggregation logic a little bit. So as the visual representation that you can see here, there is no one size fit all, right? So there is no magic formula that every enterprise can use, right? So depending on the enterprise, they may choose to have a worst case scenario aggregation, simple average aggregation, or weighted average aggregation. Maybe they want a sum or a index-based aggregation. So it depends on what kind of aggregation they choose. And not only that, it's not just enterprise-based. Even probably within the enterprise, for one division they want one aggregation they feel it's suitable, and the other division they probably feel some other aggregation is suitable as well. So it is really left to the individual business needs of the enterprise. So that's the reason metric stream solution, as you will see, it's kind of very flexible and it will suit any kind or most of the needs that is needed for the aggregation. Now let's talk about metric stream's big picture of the risk aggregation solution, right? So in order to do a risk aggregation, what metric stream provides you is a drill down report framework. So this is so that you can drill down or traverse through any kind of hierarchy. It could be an organization hierarchy, it could be a risk hierarchy, it could be an accessible item hierarchy. So any kind of hierarchy you will be able to drill down using the reporting framework. For example, the aggregation could start, if you have a hierarchy of, let's say, location, the aggregation could start at the continent level. Maybe I am looking at in Asia, and I drill down in Asia, and then I find India and China, and then I drill down in India again, and then find the states of India. So that's just an example. We also provide you a graphical heat map, which will translate the aggregated data into a lovely graphical format as well. We provide you data security governance, meaning the dynamic hierarchy that I was talking about, which is tied to the security. So as a risk manager, if I'm in charge of the European division, European region, plus a personal banking division, I'd like to see the data that is pertaining only to my division and my region, right? So that security is critical for most of the enterprises. So that is taken into consideration here, meaning that there is only one report, and the same report gives you different data and different people access it. And of course, we spoke about aggregation logic. We provide you out-of-the-box aggregation logic like worst case scenario and average, and an extendable reporting framework so that you can have your own other aggregation like sum or weighted average that is suiting or that is suitable to the business needs. All right. So now that we've spoken of the big picture, let's talk about a use case. So that it is a little easier, and then we'll get into the live demonstration. So for this use case, I'm going to talk about fraud risk as level 1, and then we have external internal fraud as children. There's Paul as the CRO and Grace as regional head. And I'm considering 2 dimensions, business unit and region. Okay, and let's see the aggregation done from the perspective of Grace. So Grace is the regional head of Europe in core banking. And this picture that you see is nothing but the dynamic hierarchy I'm talking about, which is nothing but a mix of 2 hierarchies, both the region as well as the business line. So when Grace logs in and then accesses the report, she gets to see Europe because the report is already pre-filtered to reflect her access level. She's got a limited access. So Grace comes to the report and then sees Europe is in the red zone, showing high as the residual score. She drills down on Europe. She gets to see UK and Spain. She feels Spain is fine. It's within the risk criteria, but UK, on the other hand, seems to be on the red zone, and she wants to know the reasons for she drills down further. So when she drills down further, she gets to see that 1 and 3 are the troublemakers, which is nothing but the corporate banking business unit, and she has to have an eye on that. Right? So that is how Grace interacts with the report. Now, let's see, for example, the same report is interacted by Paul, the CRO. Let's see how he sees it. So Paul is the CRO, and he gets to see both. He has access to both, as in like he's got the full access. And when he's got the full access, he gets to see the aggregated data both by business unit or by location. So he has a choice. He can say, okay, so let's first see his visual representation when he aggregates it by business unit. So I get to see the global level or all business units, and Paul drills down further. It's the context is then split into investment banking and then core banking. So Paul wants to drill down on investment banking further, and he sees capital market seems to be on the red zone. So the residual score is high for that. I drill down further and I see 3 and 7, which is nothing but UK. So it is, the data integrity is maintained here because what Grace saw in the previous drill down report is she also felt that UK is problematic, and the same data is, so it's the same report. Imagine a Rubik's Cube where you get to play around with that. So it's nothing but the same data that people are seeing, only with the perspective and from their own eyes. So Paul also gets to aggregate by location as well, and he gets similar experience, only in this case, he gets to drill down by location instead of a business line. So if you see, I drill down at the global level, and then Europe and America are shown, and drill down on Europe, and I see UK and Spain, and then the last drill down, I get to see the individual assessments that are contributing to that aggregation. So now that we've spoken about the use case, I believe this sort of set a stage for the demo. So let's now get into the feature demonstration. All right, so this is the metric stream risk management application. So the landing page, as you can see, are filled with dashboards. These are also snippets of aggregated dashboards where you can see here that this is an aggregated count reporting. It's called as residual risk exposure. It tells me what are my level 1 risks and the count split by rating. So if we talk about human resources risk, I can see clearly that there are about 21 risks sitting at high, and 32 in medium, and 13 in low rated risk. So similarly, you have other aggregated reports here like control effectiveness. But what I want to show you right now is really, I want to start with the Data Explorer. The Data Explorer is a fantastic visual 360-degree view that it gives into the various objects that the enterprise is dealing with. So as you can see here in the sample organization, I have organizations, metrics, issues, controls, risks, all of this in graphically represented. So I'm going to drill down on organization just to see how it is. And it gives me that this is my parent organization, Acme Corp. And when I drill down further, I get to see that in the Acme Corp hierarchy, there are further down like telecom, manufacturing, life sciences. So basically, the entire line of business is expanded well. So if I drill down further on the banking line of business, I get to see all the related, the next level of the banking line of business, right? So this is how this is how helpful the Data Explorer is. So what I want to do is just how we went inside the hierarchy and explore the hierarchy of the organization. I'd like to explore the hierarchy of risk. So I'm going to select risk. So when I select risk, I get to see there are various level 1 risks. So let me select operational risk. And you will see that there are about 13 risks sitting as children of operational risk. If I further drill down on that, I get to see the level 2 risks now. So you get to see the supply chain risk, reputational risk, fraud risk, so on and so forth. Now let me take fraud risk as an example, and what I'm going to do is I want to expand or get into the fraud risk record so that we quickly have a look at what kind of fields or the information that we can capture. So metrics team helps you to capture, like I said, it captures the level. This is where your risk taxonomy leveling comes to picture. So this is fraud risk clearly sitting at level with having the parent of operational risk. I can also categorize it using various categories. I get to choose the owner who's in charge of this particular fraud risk and for what organization is in charge for, so on and so forth. I also can establish relationships of this risk against my organization and against my other processes as well. So this will give me, this will help me to create an effective ontology representation of my risk taxonomy. So now that we've spoken about that, now what I want to show you is our assessments. So I'm going to drill down on fraud risk further. Let's just take a quick sneak peek of how the assessments looks like. I'll drill down on fraud risk further, and let me take unauthorized trading. The moment I drill down on unauthorized trading, you can see 8 risk assessments linked to that. As you can see, how within the same, I have not shifted my view. I'm just in the same view, and you can see how beautifully metrics team allows you to traverse from one object to a different related object itself, right? So you don't have to go to any other screen. You can achieve and then traverse everything within the single screen itself. And as you can see, there are about 8 assessments done. So let me quickly expand on one assessment just to show you how an assessment looks like as well. And then we'll talk about the other aggregation aspects. So this is a typical assessment done. So as you can see here, this assessment of theft and unauthorized activity assess risk, or let's say procurement contract fraud, whatever the risk may be, has been performed in the context of the branch banking operational risk in America. So this is nothing but the context within which the assessment is done. And let's say I am now drilling down on this particular risk. When I open it, you get to see that for that particular risk of procurement and contract fraud, the inherent rating is high, and that was calculated using these factors, impact and likelihood. All of these factors are configurable so that you can choose to create your own factors, one or more. And when I scroll down, I get to see the control effectiveness. So independent controls have been rated as effective or ineffective. And then finally, my residual rating is arrived at because with the help of both my inherent assessment and my control assessment as well. So that is how your risk assessment is done and set up. Now that we've seen and had a look at the risk assessment piece, let me now take you to the risk aggregation report as well. Actually, this is, let me go to a different instance for that. This is a new addition to our kitty, and this is actually a very interesting report that I'd like to highlight. There you go. So there is a risk aggregation report that you see here. All right, so I'm going to select my perspective. This is a sample perspective I have created. So this perspective is nothing but setting the context of what context am I needing the aggregation for. So in this slide, we spoke about a lot of things, right? The context, we spoke about aggregation logic. So we also spoke about there are different hierarchies. So this aggregate by is nothing but an option or a parameter that you have to choose, which, let's say for example, I choose the line of business. I want to see my risk data aggregated by line of business. So if you can, I can either choose line of business, functions, locations. This basically represents your organizational dimension. It can be anything, but these are the sample dimensions. So as of now, I'm just selecting the line of business. I also get to choose the risk aggregation basis. As you can see, out of the box, we provide a worst case scenario and average. I'm gonna go with average right now. You can choose the control aggregation basis separately. I will leave that average. And we also have other filters here. If I would like to consider, I don't want to consider all my data. I want to consider only some of my, perhaps I want to see the aggregation specific to a particular organization or a specific risk. As of now, I'm going to just let it open. and I'm applying the filter. Now, one thing to be noted here is that this report is pre-filtered by my access already, right? So I get to see this report only with respect to my access and not all the data. So now that I've run the aggregation by line of business, the system is, or the report is clearly telling me that the dimension, listing all the dimensions at the level 1. It is also giving me the aggregated ratings of inherent, control, and residual, along with the rating as well as the score. Now, how have I come to this picture? How has the system aggregated? What are the different records that are considered for these aggregation? If obviously that question runs in our mind, that is where we have the view assessments link as well. So when I click on view assessments, system tells me, okay, these are the number of aggregations that have been, these are the number of assessments that have been considered in order to arrive at. So these are individual assessments with different ratings. I have low, high. It's all a mix and match of ratings, right? So all of these assessments have been considered, and then the aggregation was arrived at based on the aggregation logic that you've selected here, right? So I can also view the aggregation logic by function if I choose to. I apply the filter again, and I get to see, this time I get to see the aggregation logic by HR and marketing. Now this time I don't want to see the assessments, I want to drill down and then see further into my hierarchy, right? So if I drill down on HR, I get to see administration as per, you get to see the hierarchy. So this is governed by the hierarchical structure with which the dimensions have been created, plus the access access security that governs the user. So I can see that for the administration as well. I get to see the aggregated rating. I can also go ahead and click on view the assessments as to how this rating was arrived. And I also have a toggle view here where I can go to the heat map view. And in the heat map view, I can also clearly see how the assessment has moved from an inherent to the residual plot. So I can keep doing this. So I can. It depends on what level of aggregation I want it for. It depends on what kind of aggregation I'm looking for. I can even aggregate by risk. I can aggregate by functions. Like I said, it is a Rubik's cube. It is left to the user's need as to how they want to see the data for. And not only that, like I was talking about, the out-of-the-box worst case scenario and average. This can be extended fairly simply, and any sorts of aggregation needs can be met depending on the organization needs. So with that, I think I've kind of come to the conclusion of the presentation. Thank you for watching my session. If there is any questions that you would like to ask, please feel free to reach out to us. And I hope that you have an enjoyable session at the Metrics Team GRC Summit 2020. Thank you.